Japan has pledged $30 billion in aid of development on the African continent. The announcement was made on Saturday as a foreign nation said it wants to work closely with the African continent with the rules-based international order on the threats after the war in Ukraine. Addressing the Japan-African Summit in Tunisia, Prime Minister Fumio Kishida said Tokyo would work to ensure grain shipments to Africa amid a global shortage. Kishida, whom took part in the just ended 8th edition of the TICAD, the Tokyo International African Summit on Development, via video link after testing positive for COVID-19, said that the $30 billion would be delivered over 3 years, promising small sums for food security in coordination with the Africa Development Bank. More to that, Japanese Foreign Minister Yoshimasa Yashi suggested or highlighted that Japan was granting Tunisia $100 million to help mitigate the impact of the pandemic. This aid comes at a time when most African countries are putting in place measures in order to ensure that they boost development in their various countries. And today we shall be analyzing what tax surrounds this aid and what it means for the African continent. Stay with us. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us on today's edition of Voice It over Pan-African Channel for You Media. And today we are analyzing the pledge made by the Japanese government, of course, at the TICAD 8th edition that took place over the weekend in Tunisia, where Japan pledged $30 billion, of course, for the development of the African continent. And joining me this afternoon is Dr. Ningwaniam. He is a political analyst and, of course, an entrepreneur here in Cameroon. Thank you, Mansi, for joining us, Doc.
Thank you very much. It's quite an exciting topic, and good afternoon to our listeners. When I was coming to the studio, I actually didn't have this background as to what, who gave them. I mean, I knew the Japanese had given us some money. I didn't know the background to this, and we'll be looking into that, and I have my own thoughts. Exactly.
And we equally have Ms. Tanji Lucas, who is joining us all the way from the southwest region of Cameroon. He's a human rights activist and political analyst. Thank you for joining us today, sir. Ms. Tanji Lucas, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can get you. Thank you for joining us on today's edition.
Yes, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be today on this edition, and it's a pleasure to be with Dr. Nick Ngwanya, whom we shall be discussing on how we can grow our region, though some people get to see it as if it's something that you can just bump into it and pick up a piece of meat and you start deciding on it. But I think we'll have to zoom into that to see who has what responsibility and who has that mandate to zoom into it or to just barge into it and pick up and start deciding on it. Thank you.
Thank you too. We equally have Mr. Gina Elvis Banner, who's joining us all the way from Cameroon's political capital, Yaoundé. He's a political analyst joining us all the way there from Yaoundé. Thank you, Masli, for joining us, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much, madam, for inviting me. Good afternoon to all viewers of For You TV, and of course a special afternoon to all my co-panelists. I'm looking forward to our engagement this afternoon.
Before we get down to discussing today's topic of discussion, I'd like you to take a listen to this detailed report compiled to us by Mwanze Joyoge regarding the TICAD 8 that held in Tunisia. Take a listen.
About 30 African heads of state and a Japanese delegation have met in the Tunisian capital, Tunis, for talks on promoting African-led development. The talks was chaired by African Union leader Macky Sall, while Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida used a video link to join the summit due to health restrictions. On the agenda were measures aimed at countering China's influence on Africa, as China has been steadily increasing its influence in the region in recent years, notably through its ambitious Silk Road project. The summit ended with Japan promising $30 billion aid to Africa in investments. Japanese Prime Minister also promised to pressure for an African seat at the UN Security Council and the appointment of a special envoy to the Horn of Africa, where a long drought has prompted the UN's weather agency to warn of an unprecedented humanitarian catastrophe. According to AU Chair Macky Sall, almost 30 years after its launch, The Tokyo International Conference for African Development continues to deliver on its promises with concrete results in areas such as education, agriculture, health, and water.
Thank you, Mwanze Joyogo, for that report. Of course, we did listen that it comes at a time when Japan has pledged $30 billion, of course, for the development of the African continent. Today, we are taking an in-depth look at this pledge to the African continent. So I'm going to kick off with you, Doc. What evaluation can you make, having listened to this report, what evaluation can you make regarding this pledge made by the Japanese government?
Before I delve into this particular one, I would like to say that, you know, Africa has been receiving a lot of aid for a very long time now, but we don't seem to have a lot to show for the aid that we receive, and that's where the problem lies. And, you know, when I heard about this news, it was just my plea and my prayer that it should not disappear, you know, into thin air like some of the aid that we've seen before, and this has been going on for 60 years. There must be a better way of using aid so that we can account for it and see it multiply its effects on the continent and in our communities. And as a good example, you know that the Japanese built some classrooms for, or some schools for us in Cameroon, right?
Yes.
And you would also agree with me that those classrooms are some of the best that we have in Cameroon, and they are very good. And the other thing that you would have noticed is that the Japanese, they build the classrooms, and ever since they left, there are some of them that we don't even look after. Some look very dirty, abandoned, and so on. That's in our nature not to look after things. So imagine if the Japanese had not built the classroom. The Japanese came with the money, took authorization from the government, and put the classrooms on the ground themselves. I think that's how it works. Each time you give raw cash to Cameroonians or Africans to do a project, you will always end up with these ghost elephants and ghost projects and so on that don't
end
exist.
up diverting the funds.
Yes, they divert the funds, and we have very good examples everywhere. Over the whole of Africa, the COVID funds were very poorly managed. And our agriculture, as they say, is not doing very well. So I think there is a way of us, you know, getting this aid and using it in a manner that, you know, we can show the effects. Let's say this money that will be given today, 10 years down the road, can we be able to trace and say these activities going on the ground are because of what we received 10 years ago? That is what we want to see, not money that would just come, or aid that would come as food and then we eat and go to the toilet, or we are given money and then it disappears into private pockets and never really amounts to very much. I think that's what we should be dealing with.
Over to the other panelists. Over to you, Mr. Angie Lucas. You did elaborate a little when you were introducing yourself. So I'd like to ask you, in your own opinion, what evaluation can you make of this grant, of this pledge made by the Japanese government?
Yes, I will be speaking on this pledge made by the Japanese government, which I will be saying that it isn't a gift. I think it is worth mentioning that it isn't a gift. And to Africans who must have listened to this, we should bear in mind that this is another form of the masterpiece which they have once had to colonize Africa, and they do not have but good plans for the African continent. And what is quite unfortunate is that they are not coming in as investors, in the sense that the people who get to receive this will have to be where they have to be. It is also worth mentioning that it is a quid pro quo situation which the Japanese have in place. This is to say that the Japanese are coming today to invest in Africa because they have plans to carry out our natural resources, which is their paramount reason. They also have as a political reason to lobby African concern, because Japan has plans to make some reforms within the UN Security Council, and she wants to become a permanent member in the UN Security Council. So this is to let you actually another trap to get the Africans concerned to support them in this quest to become a permanent member in the UN Security Council. And I also want to say that I do not actually see this as an investment. I will not be seeing this as a pledge, in the sense that, firstly, the persons who are there, I want to believe that we did not get any bill that was sent into the respective parliaments to be ratified for this conference. Yes, I know that the Tokyo International Conference on Africa's Development, which was initiated since the year 2000 and 2002, has had several conferences where Japan, at a particular point in time, finds this very interesting and wants to have its own share of this cake. We have the Toyota, we have the Toshiba, and the list will go on, and I cannot even exhaust the list of Japanese products in Africa. And Japan is coming today to Africa because China has a problem with her at the Southeast Asian Sea, and she finds it very difficult for certain things to come over to Japan. So Japan is also coming to Africa because of the diversifying nature of the countries. That's Japan's energy policy. You know, after the Fukushima plan and after the horrible situation that happened recently in Japan, where the nuclear powers had at a certain point exploded and it led to thousands of people, Japan is trying to diversify its energy source, and these energy resources are in Africa. So Japan says she wants to invest in Africa this $30 billion, which she did not put a time frame, because we understand exactly what she is all about. So people may want to hear this and think that it is a good news. I do not find this a good news. For over 60 years now, because Japan has been in Africa since 1960s, and for over 60 years now, we have not had a coupling plant of any of its companies in Africa. And she is talking about infrastructural development to sell its finished product in the African continent. So this will tell you that the plan Japan has is not a good one. It is time for Africans to start thinking of Africa first. I want to call on all the Pan-Africanists that we are not going to give up, because we are not refusing investors. We are not refusing that people should not come to do business with us. But what I'm saying is that Japan is not coming to Africa as that Father Christmas, as the kids will put it, or that Santa Claus as we know it. She is coming to Africa with terrible motives, and I want to say that these motives are not for the development of Africa. Africa cannot develop if we keep on receiving finished products. Of course, we all know that it is cheaper to take the raw material and it's more expensive to sell the finished goods. I'll be coming back to talk more on this while we listen to the other panelists. Thank you, Njix.
Thank you to Mr. Angie Lucas. Of course, you said a lot. Definitely, you said a lot. Just to reiterate that this grant or this pledge is actually going to be distributed within a period of 3 years. Okay, over to you, Mr. Njine Bane. Having heard the contradictory views of the other two panelists, what is your view on this pledge made by the Japanese government?
Okay, permit me begin by saying that you know, personally already I feel so bad as an African when I see Asian or European countries constantly come to Africa from that perspective of we are going to give aid to Africa, we are going to give aid to Africa. Because in reality, we may even turn around to ask ourselves the question, who in reality here is the donor and who is at the receiving end? Because they come to Africa and they actually make away with so much of our raw material, you see, and they come parading themselves as the messiahs who are going to save us from a certain situation. I totally do not agree with that. Now, talking about the aid, like my predecessor just said, we are not denying Cameroon or Africa can receive aid from any country in the world, just like we should give aid out to some countries too. We should not also neglect that. But now, one thing I want us to understand is that the nature of aid that you give to someone actually determines or defines whether you are actually aiding that person or not. If you come back to our African continent here, we do not need financial aid. Let us be very, very honest to ourselves, because those very countries claiming to give aid to Africa do not forget, or that they are quite conscious of the fact that the leaders to whom they hand this money at the end of the day squander it, and it doesn't serve that purpose. Hello? Hello?
Yes, Mr. Njine, we're getting you.
So I'm saying that they are conscious of the fact that we are dealing with corrupt leaders in Africa, to whom when they hand the financial aid, it ends up not serving the purpose for which it was even given. Secondly, I even wonder if they have a clear, let me use the term, a clear business plan as to where they want to invest. If they want to aid us in Africa, I would rather suggest Africans need training in particular spheres, in particular fields. Africa needs technology. Africa needs the infrastructure that we see in most of these countries. We do not need financial aid. Let them come to Africa with the type of structures that we see in their countries. Let them come to Africa with the type of industries that we see in their country. In that case, I can call that aid, because those industries, if constructed here, will go a long way to employ the African youth within their countries, and of course generate further income for the respective countries and fight unemployment. But when you come with banknotes, knowing fully whether it is going to end in the hands of a particular people and you call it aid, then honestly speaking, I deny it. Secondly, like I say, we need the type of aid that trains the Africans to be autonomous in building of their own country. Remember that when we talk about aid from China, from Japan, and all these other countries, the AU seat in Africa, for instance, was donated to us by China. But we know that after constructing this structure, they pirated the system, and everything that was happening at the AU was uploaded and sent to China every 2 a.m. not until it was discovered by an African IT technician that worked there. So we are not supposed to trust these guys, because they are coming back for a recolonization of Africa, just like they did in the 18th century. The only difference being that in the centuries past, they came with the gun, they came with their Bible, they came with gin and fooled our people, and today they are coming with banknotes and lofty projects that actually have never materialized since the 1960s till today. So I think for the beginning or for the first part of this program, madam, I can simply say we need to be aware of all these Asian and European countries that come to us as messiahs. They have never loved us, and they do not come with the intent to help us. If at all, they are out to aid us. Look at the type of treatment that they give to our African brothers who are out there in China, in Japan, in Europe. Look at the treatment given to Africans who are in the war.
I think we
not,
okay.
But at the same time, his own people who are on their territory, we don't give them any humane treatment. Unfortunately, we have a set of leaders today on the continent who, at one point in time, do not think and have any vision for their people or the continent. They think only about themselves, and of course, they easily prefer to go for the hard cash because they embezzle it for themselves and their families. And it's rather unfortunate, because in the long run, Africans will be paying debts that were contracted on their behalf, but they never actually had any share in such debt. So Japan is not aiding Africa as of now. We need to see into it that we get onto a level where when they come to, they should call it bilateral cooperation, you see. And in this bilateral cooperation, it is a win-win type of a thing. They should forget trying to give the impression that they are coming to save Africa out of a certain situation. No, because if that were the case, Africa would not be where it is today, because China is there, Japan is there, the whole of Europe is there, and each one comes to tell you that they are coming to aid Africa, yet our situation remains worse than ever before. Thank you.
Thank you to Mr. Njine. Mr. or Dr. Nick, having listened to the other panelists, you've heard they have contradicting views, or let's say unanimous views, so to say. What impact do you think that this aid has on the African continent, given your potential, your credentials as an economic expert as well as a political analyst?
Thank you very much. I took time off to listen to what Mr. Njine Lucas and Mr. Njine Elvis were saying. You know, they say quite some interesting things. Yes. But you know, when they are saying things, they said quite a lot. Part part of it is acceptable, part is not exactly right. So it's a little bit tricky, all right? Now, for starters, Japan is not coming to colonize us. Let's get it straight. And Japan has never colonized us. Those that have colonized us, in quotes, they have been the Germans came and left, and then the British and the French. If we have a problem now, we have a problem with the French. We don't have a problem with the others.
You rarely get issues that there are issues or problems with the British and others.
But the truth again is, let's say it, they are also right in the sense that if you look at the Chinese and the way they are coming in, if we as Africans don't do something, the Chinese and all the other, they are going to take over Africa. So it's a kind of colonization where the chips or the guns or whatever that are used are different. It's technology, all right? It's technology. So the fight is not this thing that we are doing on TV, arguing with neocolonialism. No, that's not it. The fight is in the classroom. The fight is in the laboratory. The fight is in industry. The fight is in technology.
Yes.
So you can talk as much as you want from morning till evening. As long as you are unable to feed yourself, someone will colonize you. You know, it doesn't. It doesn't matter.
It's more of a tactful kind of.
No, it's not tactful. That's how nature works. There is no room for vacuums. So this is it. Yesterday, when they came and took us as slaves and whatever, they used guns. They might have deceived us with their Bibles and mirrors and so on. Okay, but we're a little bit too smart now to be deceived by Bibles, and but we are still deceived in the sense that we are. They still use some tricks. All right,
yes.
That agreed. But we are wiser now. But just being wise is not good enough. So watch my lips. There is something that Africans ought to be doing that they are not doing. That is the bottom line. And as long as we are Africans and we are not doing that our homework, someone will colonize us whether we like it or not. It's not about feelings. It's about something that has to be done, and you didn't do it, and somebody is going to come to do it for you, and when he does it for you, you become his slave. It's just as simple as that. We've been singing about minerals. The question I will ask is, what have Africans been doing with the minerals? As long as we are concerned, we just see mounds of earth. We don't even know how to extract them. Take our wood, for instance. We cut the wood, we sell it like that. None of us transforms it into a useful table or chair that can be sold on the international market. And then we sell it for very cheap, and then we take the money, and this is the sad part. We take the money and we go buy rice and wheat and fish. Something that is low tech that we can do for ourselves. But we are so primitive that we don't have the technology to grow these things.
That Africans really don't want to put in place efforts in order for us to develop. We prefer getting the already finished products.
You see, I was feeling a little bit sad because the Japanese, they promised us 30 billion, and I was going to say this 30 billion should be put into technology, but they're already saying that they will bring some grain and give us. What are we doing? Are you getting me? That is the point. This is hard cash. But they are going to give us in form of grain. You and I will eat it and then go to the toilet the next day. It's not helping in any way. They should give us the kind of help that allows us to grow and go from one level to the other. And my brothers were blaming the Europeans, the Americans, and the Asians. Don't blame them. Blame yourself. That's why I keep saying that our educational system is not good, our government policies are not good, and everything has failed because we are supposed to be doing these things for ourselves. It's not the Japanese that are supposed to come and teach you in your schools. You know, start your schools, know what you want, then go to Japan and say, please give me some teachers and some laboratories so that I can have the technology that I want. It's the Japanese don't come to impose technology on you. It's you who should know that I need this technology, I need the technology to create vehicles. Then go to China and lobby and get the Toyota or whatever company to come, and then get their engineers to come and teach your own children. If you need something from there, you go go get it. It's not the Chinese or the Japanese or the Americans who are supposed to come and spoon feed you. It's you to know what you want and you go for it. When you're a man and you want to get married to a woman, you look for the beautiful woman yourself, you go for her yourself. You don't sit and you are drinking from morning to evening and ask your father to go do that.
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
Africa is not mature. Africa is missing out on something. You know, it is the DIY. You must do it yourself. And I'm thinking now as an entrepreneur, we keep blaming people for nothing, and it's our educational system that has failed. Let's stop blaming others for our failures.
So you said a lot, and I would like to ask you, what do you think is lacking? Because you mentioned that there's some kind of lapses. Yeah. What do you think is actually lacking in order for development and economic growth to finally?
Yeah, that's the bottom line. I will keep saying it and saying. You know what? Last time I was here when we talked about the three different things that make the world or any system to move.
Yes.
We talked about politics, which is about policies and putting in place the right policies and making sure that they work. We talked about economics. And in talking about economics, I told you that our economy in Cameroon and most African countries is a primitive economy. When you have an economy that is sustained by sales of raw materials, it's a primitive economy. It's not useful. An economy is described as being useful and modern when in that economy, in that locality, you can transform your goods, your raw materials into finished goods, and then you sell them, because in the course of the transformation you use technology and you add value to it before you sell. But as long as you are selling raw stuff, you can never be developed. You will remain the slave of the world. You remain the laughing stock of the world, and that is a very poor economy. Your children will have no jobs. There will be poverty and disease and hunger in your midst. And there is only one way of escaping it. Either you take it or you live in and you continue to complain day in, day out. Nothing will change. You are the only one who can change your situation for yourself. Blaming others is no use. And then you remember we talked about development, and we said it was physical development of infrastructure, all sorts of infrastructure, energy, telecommunication, roads, whatever. And that a part of this communication development, there was part A, part B. We just talked about part A. Part B was human capacity development. That is what is missing in Africa, the human capacity development. Once you don't develop the capacity of your youth, of your leaders, of your people, of your economies very well, nothing is going to change for you. And we are saying that most of this Japanese aid should go into human capacity development so that they can help us in our education. Not the education we have now. The education we have now is not good. It's a bad kind of education. The education is just full of theory and memorization and storytelling. It's a technology field kind of education. STEM, you remember? Science, technology, engineering, economics, and mathematics. That's the kind of education we want. To which there they add agriculture, leadership, management, character training, all these things. So that is it. And then we also agreed last time that what makes the politics, the economics, and the development work right is education. The driving force, the energy that drives it around is education. And therefore in Africa, because we have a bad education, the people in politics, in economics and development, they are spinning around in circles, are confused and don't know what to do. And until we correct that education and bring forth a new generation of youths who know what to do, nothing will work.
Thank you so much for that one. Okay, over to you, Mr. Angie Lucas. I believe you've heard what the doctor said. So you earlier mentioned that you're not refusing the fact that Africans can actually cooperate with different foreign powers. So I'd like to ask you, how do you think the continent can work hand in glove with these foreign powers for the advancement of Africa?
Yes, I think it's very simple. If I were to go straight to what the need, firstly, we have to understand that Japan is a country and cannot sign a relationship of development with African countries, grouping them like somebody meeting children and you decide to just put them together for your personal good. No. We have individual countries in Africa. Macky Sall perhaps is seen as the leader of the African Union. However, he does not have the monopoly of the will of the Africans. I want you to understand that young Africans now know exactly what they want. And this must be reflected in any international instrument. So, Macky Sall is receiving the envoy who came from Tokyo. We are talking about the Tokyo International Conference on Africa's Development. It's a single country whose economy is portrayed to be more than that of Africa. It is appalling altogether. It's appalling in the sense that it makes Africa very weak when we talk about decisions on things like that. Tokyo should not call more than 30 African countries to discuss the economy with. Cameroon should discuss as a country. Macky Sall may be discussing as the head of the African Union, which of course he is the head of his own country. So he cannot represent the view of Cameroonians. And I want to say that the constitution of every country, it is what that country uses to thrive. If you talk about development. Now, Japan says she has several reasons. For the viewers who do not know, I listened to Dr. Nick quite well. But I want to say that Japan is coming to Africa because she thinks that China has a lot already which she is making from Africa. And because of that, she cannot compare with China, which they have a problem in the Southeast Asian Sea since 2010. And she feels that coming to Africa, it is going to destabilize China's grip on her in Asia, because she understands that China is making this big because she's ripping from Africa. And I want you to understand that the multinational companies are the major reason for Africa's underdevelopment. In as much as we have to blame ourselves, but I want you to understand that they have a reason they are coming. Japan before now would donate to Africa. But Japan says they want their private companies this time around to come to Africa and invest. And like I said in my introduction, it shouldn't be a case of Japan investing in infrastructure. We want to see this $30 billion invested in coupling plants, invested in Africa in a way that the companies they have that wants to do that particular business with Africa, their plants should be in Africa, where Africans will be the ones they will employ. And these Africans will be the persons to carry on these activities. If they truly want Africa to do business with Japan, like I said, it sounds as if it's a quid pro quo. But I want you to understand that the African leaders we have had for the last 40 years are not Pan-Africanists. These are puppets. They are people who have decided to listen to which the West will say, and sadly today they want to start taking from what the East is saying, and they have gone to Asia. It is not for the good of Africans. So Macky Sall cannot be the mouthpiece of every African. In Cameroon, we know exactly what is the problem. If you go to Mali, the Malians know exactly what is the problem. And I want you to understand that at this moment, what we want, if Japan truly wants to support Africa, let this go as follows. Africans should be identified. They should set up institutions that will teach Africans how to build computer chips. They should set up institutions that will teach Africans how to manage nuclear energy. Japan wants to use Africa to leverage on and Ghana for support that she needs. She wants to garner for Africa's support towards becoming a permanent member in the UN Security Council for her own reasons. So, I want you to understand that if Japan wants to build Africa as she claims, because according to Japan, according to this particular conference, she says that she has identified that China is bringing her labor force in Africa. And she thinks that if she would have this deal with Africa, where her companies will come and sell in terms of infrastructure and other goods, it will be better. So I am saying that they should build coupling plants. They should teach Africans how to build the chips. They should teach Africans how to make the car engines. They should teach Africans how to develop the same things they have. Then we can start talking about business. But if I look at this, we are not excited of this $30 billion. Of course, we know that in all of this, the African leaders that we have know exactly where their interest lies. I'm aware that there are African leaders who are already thinking of, if a certain $200 million is coming to my country, then let about $90 million go to my private account. But we look forward to seeing how this is going to be feasible. It's a 3-year plan. And I'm waiting to see how this 3-year plan is going to work. We shall put a close eye. I am calling on all the Pan-Africanists to think Africa first, because this is the time for Africa to grow up. We have the minerals. Yes, Dr. Nick was asking that what are we doing with these minerals? This is where Africa should use it as the bargaining power to decide. I've already given to you, for those who do not know, Japan wants to extract the finished or the mineral resources in Africa and bring in infrastructural trade deals with Africa, which she thinks China is already making it big. So this is just to fight back with China. And I want the listeners and the viewers to note that Japan is not coming to Africa because she has Africa at heart. Japan is coming to Africa because China is defeating her both in Asia and in Africa. So she feels like she had been dormant for all these years. We have had Toyota cars for over 60 years. Tell me the country that has a coupling plant of Toyota cars in Africa. Then I will tell you that yes, we are good to go. Which is set up for Africans to work on. Then I'll tell you that yes, we are good to go. Thank you. I'll come back.
Quickly, you mentioned something about the Japanese government actually training Africans on something like nuclear weapons. Okay, given the insecurity crisis in Africa, though it's really not in line with our topic of discussion, but given that, don't you think it's a misdirected kind of tactic?
No, we are not talking. I'm not talking about the nuclear weapons. I am talking about nuclear energy.
Okay.
Yes, because
thank you for the clarification.
Yes, because this is what they use to develop their country, nuclear energy. The US today, because she understands nuclear energy goes a lot. It is a developmental tool. If you go back to look at all the countries, the 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council are countries with nuclear energy. It will tell you where the economies are. And so they understand exactly what is happening. If you talk about countries, China is thriving today because of that. So you need to understand that Japan has nuclear energy. The Fukushima plant that went and exploded some years back, where so many Japanese died, Japan wants to diversify her energy. And she knows exactly what that will mean. And these minerals are in Africa. She is coming to Africa to get these minerals. And Macky Sall and a few African leaders will not decipher for Africa. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Before I head to you, Mr. Njine Bane, I got that doctor wants to say something regarding the statement made by, of course, Mr. Nje Lucas.
Yes, Mr. Njini, Elvis, just excuse me for a few minutes. Let me explain something, because Mr. Nji Lucas was saying something there and being very emotional. And, you know, I just want to say something just to clarify the air. First and foremost, you should know that the Toyota company is in South Africa, and Toyotas are manufactured in South Africa. Now, the Japanese have the right, just like any other country, to do business with Africa. For whatever reason, they are not going to ask your permission to come to Africa to do business. And whether they want to be this, a permanent member of the Security Council is not written in any Bible or any constitution that they cannot be. And if they can lobby and be, why not? Africa should, because Africa is a big continent, we should either also be lobbying to see how we can go there, and to be arguing that Japan is coming because she wants to fight China. That is none of our business. All right, and Japan has the right to do whatever she can do to advance. It doesn't matter whom she's fighting, and I think it's a good thing. It's a good thing for many of these superpowers to be coming to Africa at the same time, because they kind of like stabilize the effects of each other. Because when you have only one country, one country or one power, they take a lot of things for granted. You can see the France and the France-Afrique. You know, the French was taking a lot of things for granted, but when the Russians begin to come in, and you see how things begin to tilt over, they are taking things seriously and now begin to listen to us, because the French were taking the Africans for granted. But when now Russia starts coming in, then Macron starts listening carefully to what Africans are saying and no longer taking us for granted. And I told you how the Chinese are going. Now they need another counterweight like Japan to be able to do it differently.
These are two Asian countries.
But whatever happens, another little correction. You know, all the African countries come there to speak to Japan, to speak with Japan. Are you getting me? In terms big numbers give strength for negotiations. You understand what I'm saying? If Japan is a very strong country, and when it starts primarily to negotiate with every African country, we don't have the capacities to really negotiate at their level. So we come together and we talk on the general principles and agree that, okay, Japan wants to help. But now, that's part A. In part B, Japan now would speak to Cameroon, we speak to Ghana, we speak to different countries, and they will have these bilateral agreements, you know, coming out of this thing. But they're using this one to talk on general principles to all the nations. But after this talk, they will now go into individual negotiations with different countries. What do you want? How can I help you? And so on. And that's where different countries have to bring their negotiation skills now. Say, we want this, do this for us. It will be more useful than giving us grain or something like that. And to say that Macky Sall has no capacity to negotiate, I think that is wrong, because he's in charge. He's in charge now, and he's speaking as far as those general conditions are concerned on behalf of Africa.
So it's from general to specific.
Yes, when it comes to specific, now different countries will be talking. I just wanted to clarify this, and then to say that in the next era that is coming now, what most African countries should do is to encourage their diaspora to come back. And their diaspora that have been trained in science, technology, engineering, economics, mathematics, and sound management and leadership, they should come back and form companies, you know, with the locals in their countries, so that countries like Japan, if let's say a country like Japan wants to bring any industry into Africa, they should not come directly inside to the country. They should form partnerships with our local companies and be on the ground. Are you getting me?
Yes.
Because when Mr. Nji Lucas was thinking, he was only looking at employment. Africans should only come in as employees. No, form strong companies. Are you getting what I'm saying?
Yes.
And be part of the ownership and management and technology and anything, not just being employees. It's better than that.
Okay, thank you so much for that input. Over to you, Mr. Njine Elvis Bane. Of course, you have listened to your other co-panelists. Given all this, what do you think the African continent stands to gain?
Well, permit me begin by thanking Dr. Nick for taking so much of my time anyway. But I'd like to
yes, definitely.
Well, when you talk about ask what Africa stands to gain, you know, I will still repeat what I've said before, or what others have said already. We are not against any country or even a continent coming to do business with Africans. No, we are not against that. But talking about what we stand to gain as of now, I'm afraid I may sound pessimistic here. because we are saying that it is not the first time that we are seeing Japan or China or Europe or European countries come to Africa in the name of coming to give aid. That's where my worry even stands, madam. The term aid to Africa, when 60 years after so-called independence, we cannot showcase anything of what they have concretely done in Africa. So I'm afraid Africans as of now do not stand to gain anything. Why? Firstly, because we have a leadership in Africa that does not have any vision, a leadership that does not have any plan, any roadmap for Africa in terms of development, in terms of education, in terms of technology, a leadership that is totally unpatriotic, and so they prefer business deals where when such things are given to Africa in the name of aid, they take it and it becomes a personal issue for them. You see, they know that even when we talk about grains, like doctor was mentioning, when they even give by the grain, things like rice, we have leaders in Africa who see some of these bags of rice and it becomes their personal issue. The common man does not even benefit of such things. Secondly, Africa will not benefit from such business deals with foreign countries like Japan and China and the others if they cannot even among themselves already even come to terms as to how they can do business within themselves. I want to think that what we should be more focused on here is what the way forward can be for Africa, such that when these foreign countries are coming to Africa, we can be able to trade with them on a 50-50 scale balance and we benefit something. And this said, I will tell you that Africa needs to form blocks, or at least a block like we see with the European Union, where they have clear defined terms as to how business is carried out, be it within themselves, the African countries, or with any other foreign partner that comes in. Because we will discover that each country leaves Asia or Europe and comes as a continent on its own to trade with an entire Africa. I don't know what I'm saying. Small Japan comes almost and projects itself as a nation bigger than all of Africa, and then gathers African heads of states representing the whole continent, and then in most cases dishes out instructions to them on how things are going to be done, because in reality all these so-called business deals always end up going the way these foreign countries want it, and not the way we the common people would have loved it to be. And that's why I keep insisting therefore that when we talk about help, I'm afraid for now we do not stand to gain anything. If we really need to gain, if they actually call it help, what I keep saying is that they should come to Africa instead of giving us hard cash to be able to that ends in the hands of a few. They can rather come in with infrastructural development. Let them come in with some technology. Yes, they train Africans, and of course, like Dr. said, we cannot blame them if these things are not done the way they are supposed to be done. We blame our leaders who lack the vision, because that is where the problem stands. We blame our leaders for the poor quality of education that they have given our people for 60 years of so-called independence, and that's why we keep fighting for. African leaders have failed us in terms of education because they keep teaching our children how to read and write and nothing else. And you understand why, even in terms of employment, when the Chinese company wins a contract in Africa, for instance, they still bring labor from China. You see, those are the type of things that we are fighting against as far as the African continent is concerned. So I'm afraid, madam, we really do not stand to gain anything for now with such contracts from Japan. If Japan is selling grain to Africa, for instance, rice, you and I know very well Cameroon produces the best rice in the world, for instance, in Dub. But even within Yaoundé, we don't find it in business centers. On the contrary, poor quality rice is imported and even subvented from such countries like Japan, and that's what they will call aid or whatever thing. So far as I'm concerned, I want to think that we are not gaining, but I will not entirely want to blame these European or Asian countries. I blame our leaders because they are the people who have failed us. They are the people who have failed the African continent, and I want to think I will profit by this to rather call on the African youth too, because they too are so totally engaged when it comes to the political lifestyle of their countries. Let them get actively involved when it comes to politics, and then see how they can vote out of office all the octogenarians we have in place, like the ones we have in my own country here, Cameroon, and then together we can put in place people with a new vision, people with a dream that can think for the continent, and of course be able to sign deals with European countries on a 50-50 scale balance. Thank you.
Very quickly, before we wrap up with the other panelists, I would like to ask you, how do you think the African can bring about, or the continent, so to say, can bring about development?
you know, I have said, madam, there are even there is some degree of technological knowledge that these countries will not even accept to share with us, because they know by so doing they will no longer come with that perspective of coming to aid. I think that Africa can grow itself if we first of all agree to collaborate amongst ourselves as countries, because in terms of technology, for instance, if Cameroon is lacking in something, we can get it maybe from Rwanda. If Cameroon is lacking in something, we can get it from Nigeria. And what they are lacking in, they can get it from us. So Africans should, first of all, like I earlier mentioned, at least form a certain block that defines clear terms of business and partnership and collaboration amongst ourselves first as Africans, even before we start looking at the external world. Secondly, when they come to us in Africa, we are the breadbasket of the world. We have all the minerals it takes to make them what they are. When they come to us and then we have clear defined principles of business, we can now condition them. If you want petroleum from Cameroon, for instance, we condition you to construct a company in Cameroon that can refine the petroleum on the spot. You see, and that company now, you will discover that it will go a long way to fight unemployment, because it will employ the African youth, and of course it will increase the living conditions of the people. Those are some of the things that we need to do in Africa to be able to grow up to the level where the other continents and countries are.
Ms. Tanji, quickly, I want to ask you, what do you think is the way forward from all this?
Well, the way forward is very easy. You know, my suggestions are always very easy because I don't see anything to be difficult. But I want to say that Dr. Nick said some things which, before I go to conclude on that, please, I want you to understand that if we talk about Toyota having a coupling plant or an assembling plant in Africa, we are talking about Hilux and Corolla. These are things which have been there since 1962, which of course was partly brought in because of the white minority rule in South Africa. I don't want to go into the crux of the matter. That is a story for another day. And I also want to say that he talks about Macky Sall being the head of the African Union. Why would the African Union be so interested when money is involved and we start hearing of people being the head, and we do not see the African Union when trade and security is concerned within the African continent? That also will be a topic for another day, which I think will be great for Dr. Nick to ponder over. And perhaps if we meet again, we can look into that. Now, the way forward is very easy. I have always had an easy way forward. The first thing we need to do is that there was a time that the Jews got up and said, now we need a human ruler. And what God saw was that Saul was going to be that ruler. That is to tell you that humans got up and the Creator listened to them. Why? Because of their energy. There was another time, the Bible says that there was a time when the people of Babel got up and they were building the tower. And God saw that if it doesn't come into this and have the people in dispersed rank, thereby giving them different languages, their unity can take them somewhere. What am I saying to my fellow Africans, most especially the young people? This is the time to refuse the bread and sardine, to refuse the 5,000 francs for 5 bottles of drink, to refuse the things that some of these associations on Jangi House, as my humble doctor, they will always put it, that these are Norman Jangi House or Association House, when they will come to give you some bags of rice for you to eat and you think it's all about your future. This is the time for these persons, the young ones, to take their future in their hands. The octogenarians, like my brother earlier said, it is time to tell them off. And we can do that if the African youth will rise up and take his responsibility to start building his future, which begins now, thereby ensuring that the wrong persons are not put in place. Macky Sall cannot speak for me. And even if you come to Cameroon, there are persons who cannot speak for me, because we have persons who have imposed themselves to be my representatives at the level of the parliament. They are not, in the sense that a cross-section of Cameroonians and what they desire is not what they are producing. So it makes it obvious that they are not representing Cameroonians. If we were to do a vox pop on that, or if we were to conduct a research on that, where they will allow persons to move on with that, they will come to corroborate what I'm saying. So the way forward is for the Africans to take their future, and we should bargain with Japan as equals. We should not look at Japan and listen to 30 billion and be excited. Because I know that some of these guys, when they hear this 30 billion, they start thinking of how am I going to institute or how am I going to foster capital flight by ensuring that when this money comes in, it should go to my account in Europe or in whatever country they have their accounts. This is the time for the Afghan youth to seize their destiny, to seize their responsibility and pilot it themselves and be participatory in political decisions with their eyes open, and we will have solution to what is plaguing the continent.
So much, Mr. Nji Lucas. Of course, it's time for Africans to take their future into their hands. To conclude with you, Dr. Nick, what would be your concluding statement?
Thank you very much. I've been listening very keenly to what Mr. Nji Lucas and Ginny Elvis were saying. And like I keep saying, they have some good points and some points that I need to bring clarity to. Yes, Africans have to take their responsibility. Yes, youths have to take their responsibility. But there is no way you can take your responsibility with the kind of education you have had. That's what I'm trying to lay emphasis on. Because many Africans or youths who are interested in politics are just interested in politics for the sake of politics. You understand? But fill them in an amphitheater and say, tell me exactly how you would solve your economic problems and your development problems, your education problems. Tell me how you would do it. They will not tell you. You understand? And that is a huge problem, and that's why I keep saying that we must correct our education. Because if most of our politicians have failed, like when they are talking, they keep blaming our politicians. Somebody is bringing something to give you, and you are insulting the person instead of dealing with your own leaders who are irresponsible. The problem is not with the Japanese who are giving you the gift or whatever. The problem is with your own leaders who are not responsible. If they are irresponsible, it's not the problem of the Japanese. You can't be insulting the Japanese for the irresponsibility of your leaders. I hope I'm communicating here. And we must build wealth-creating systems. We must be able to build wealth-creating systems. And then, when you're calling Japan a small country, you don't know what you're talking about. Small, yeah, you might say it is small in terms of geographical size. You might say it is small in terms of volume relative to you. I mean, no, population. I think Japan has a population of about 130-something million, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
and Africa,
populated as Africa.
And Africa is 1.6 billion, and China is 1.4 billion or something like that. Well, if you are just looking at those numbers and sizes of Earth, you can say that. But when it comes to technology, to military might, to financial strength, and to many of those things, you cannot call them. You cannot call them giant. That. You know, they're giants. They're giants, and you just have to when you just have to, you know, be very respectful when you are talking about these countries, and then just call them names. Thank you very much. It's about our education. We need to correct that education. Give our youth the capacity that they need to be able to tango. It's about a football match. No, a football match. It's a match. Are you getting me? Where the rules are different, where the tools are different. It's a technology. Our youth should be able to play the technology match. Should be able to play the entrepreneurial match, should be able to play the industrial match, should be able to play the financial match, should be able to play the leadership match. Are you getting what I'm saying? If you are weak on these things, forget it. They will beat you.
Okay, that was a powerful one. Thank you so much for joining us on today's edition.
Thank you very much. We just hope that Africa wakes up. If we don't do these things, China will colonize Africa. Thanks.
Okay, to conclude with other panelists out of the studio, of course, Mr. Nji Lucas, I want to say thank you for joining us on today's edition.
Thank you, Nji. It's my pleasure to share the same panel with Dr. Nick and Nji Elvis. I think I want to say that in the days ahead, we will be talking about schools. And of course, you should not forget that the civil society organization we have on the ground, which is putting a smile on the faces of the needy, we want to give a clear call that every child who needs to go to school should be supported. Yes, the educational system is not where many desire, but I want to say that even the least for them to understand before we move into that ideal educational system should be, why not, supported as they put forward their quest to obtain this. Thank you.
Engineer Elvis Banner, say thank you too for joining us on today's edition. Mr. Elvis Banner. Okay, we're saying all the way thank you. So, Doc, before we conclude.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. I just want to ask your permission to make an announcement to tell the public that there is an organization that is coming from the US, and they will be having a meeting at the St. Louis University Institute in Bonaberry. That is on the 12th of September, starting at 9:30, and they are coming to talk to our youth, and especially the nurses that are qualified, to tell them what they can do to go and work in America. And then in the end October, beginning November, there's another team that is coming from Germany, led by Mr. Jens and Jens, to bring the same information to Cameroonians, because they need about 250,000 workers to fill in the health-related jobs in Germany. So look forward to these things.
Okay, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of today's edition of Voice It Over, your Pan-African channel for you media. Thank you immensely for watching, and thank you immensely for listening. I have been Jakes. Now be safe for presentation. Stay in company of our programs.
Bienvenue à Bonapriso, bienvenue à Douala, bienvenue au Cameroun. Zach Ndam, bonjour et bienvenue.